Moving on to Mark's question. Let's talk about when to buy a car. He says, I have around $20K in cash to buy a car. My current car is 13 years old with 200K miles on it. When does it make sense to stop maintaining the current car and to just bite the bullet on buying a new one?
All right, so Mark's got $20,000 in cash right now, 13-year-old car, 200,000 miles.
Yes, sir.
He didn't say how much the 200,000. He didn't say how much the car costs to maintain, like how much he's burning.
He did not. I mean, I guess it's implied that
it's costing something.
It's costing something.
Because
yeah.
in my mind, that's the variable, right? Do you send good money after bad money, right? Like when I have been in these situations in the past, it comes down to mathematics for me, right? I look at this 13-year-old $200,000 car, and I say, okay, let's say the car Kelley Blue Book is worth, I don't know, Brian, what, $3,000? Making up a number here. All right, if I have a repair that's going to be a couple $100 and that's pretty infrequent, okay, maybe I'll do that. Something happens and all of a sudden I have a repair that's going to be like $2,000 because some major engine component has to be rebuilt. I got to really think long and hard about, okay, if I do this, realistically, what is the probability of a longevity of this vehicle far past the amount of money I'm going to spend on this? So if I have a $3,000 car and I put $2,000 into it, how much longer do I realistically think this car will run? And is that justifiable? Or am I just putting Band-Aids and bubble gum on this car and it's slowly bleeding me out? I think that's the thought process that I would go through when I approach this kind of situation. You agree with that, disagree with that, or something else?
Well, it depends on how you have to kind of do. This is one of our superpowers, I think, being financial planners, is you have to kind of evaluate risk. Mm-hmm. And I think there's nothing wrong. Like when you get to a point with a car that's got, a lot of miles on it, like a lot of the Japanese cars will have timing belts, and it might cost you $1,200 or $1,500. Heck, maybe now it's $2,000. It's been a while since I've had to do it, because not only do they replace the timing belt, typically they also have to change like water pumps, because they're like, man, while we got all this out, apart. We might as well replace these other components, and it can get kind of expensive. And Daniel and I even had this conversation recently where he had to do some maintenance on his car. And it's a very reliable type of model. I'm not going to call him out on what it is, but it is one of those things where we were talking about, we're like, man, probably if you had a new car, that's 3 months worth of car payments. Mm-hmm. And now so is this just a maintenance thing? Yeah. Now, I'm pretty vicious on cars, and the fact that I look at them unemotionally, and the fact that will they do the job that I'm counting on them, and I look at vehicles as will they get me from point A to point B. If I'm worried that when I turn the key or push the button that it ain't gonna work, or I'm gonna be riding down the road and every light like a Christmas tree and it's not Christmas season goes off, and I'm scared with my family, or I'm worried about my spouse not getting the kids to school because this thing breaks down, that is Mark asked the question. Here was his question: when do you buy a car? When you're scared of your car. Because that's what, would you not drive it 4 hours down the road on a road trip? If the answer is I'm scared to death, I'd rather go rent a car because I just don't trust my car, I think you might have a problem, and you need to be thinking about that, because you need to feel like your car is reliable, trustworthy. So that's what I do, Mark. Now, this is probably a great point for me to also to share. How do we put the guardrails up to make sure, because you got some jingle in your pocket. When you got $20,000 and you got a car that you're now starting to get scared of, you start going, woo, what do I want to go do? Maybe my hobby for the next 3 weekends is go ride around to different dealerships and sit in cars. And as soon as you do that, you get car on the brain, and that thing starts growing because you breathe. Oh, that new car smell. I kind of like that. And that's what, so you got to be careful. That's why I would rather you do the research and do the homework first of, okay, you have $20,000, but where does this fit into the financial order of operations? I mean, because is all $20,000 that should go to the car, or is there 23.8, or where are you at with funding Roth IRAs, getting employer match, paying off high interest debt? That's why a financial order of operations is very important in this, because just because you have 20 in the bank doesn't mean that you've actually done the work to make sure that you can just pay cash and be done with this decision. Because we like 23.8 which is 20% down. Don't finance longer than 3 years or 36 months, and the payment shouldn't exceed 8%. But I will say the caveat is I'd always prefer cash. Everybody gives us a bad rap on this, is that they're like, just pay cash. Yes, just pay cash for the car if you can afford it. But there are times in my life where I just needed, I didn't have cash. Now, it sounds like Mark does have $20,000, so he's probably going to lean heavily on buy really nice, either used car or a very reliable new car, but it's not going to be a luxury brand with $20,000. But it needs to be something that you get there and you know when you hit the button or turn the key, it's going to get you to where you want it to go.
Reby, quick question for you. Mark, if he does decide, hey, I want to go buy a car, and I'm thinking about how much car can I afford, or how should I approach maintenance, anywhere he could go to get some information on that?
Absolutely. Moneyguy.com/resources. Not only do we have a PDF checklist all about the 23/8 rule, but we actually have a calculator. It's one of the first things you'll see up there about how much car you can afford. It'll ask you some questions like, what's your income? What's the interest rate? Just a few basic things. And you'll click calculate, and it'll help you see exactly how much the car that you should be looking for should be. So definitely check that out. It's very fun to play with. There's a few other calculators up there too. So moneyguy.com/resources if you're interested in that, Mark, or anyone else watching.
And I think it's probably going to be a used car. Just because I know I didn't start buying new cars until I could come close to paying for it in cash. Well, right at it. Same as, because it's just that, at $20,000, I think it's going to be a used car. You can buy a really nice.
Bo disagrees, but
he disagrees.
I don't disagree. I do not disagree.
I could tell your face.
His face said he disagrees.
I'm looking at Mark, and I'm saying that this guy drives cars till they get to 200,000 miles.
I was going to say, I think he's a financial mutant.
Historically, right, there is a case to be made that if you're someone who's like a long driver, like you drive cars for a very long time, he might be one of the candidates that, assuming it falls into 23/8 and it does all this stuff, a new car might be the one that makes sense, because this sucker's going to drive it till it gets to 200,000 miles. That's a 10, 12-year commitment, 13-year-old car. If you're going to drive it for 13 years, I think new technology, first owner, all the new warranties, I don't think it's crazy.
That's why he needs the calculator. So then he has a price. Okay, this is the price that I can afford. And then he can go shop around, see what the new ones are like, what the used ones are like, what the market here is like. Like Brian says, expand your radius. Look in other cities. That
by the way, if you live in high cost of living, we have a lot of discussion around here. If you want to know what we do for fun,
but it's a good point.
And Daniel's good. If Daniel had something to throw at me, he would. Is that he always says, you can't afford any cars around here for this price. I was like, do you know the last time I bought a car around it? Never. Because we live in an affluent area. People have more money than they have common sense. Yep. I go and look 150 miles away to Boaz, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama. Open up your search, because if you live in an affluent community, you're probably not going to get the best deal on the car. So go ahead and expand. And then here's what, Bo's smarter than me. I actually drove 2 hours to go pick up my wife's car for the cheaper price. Bo just paid $150, I think,
I just asked,
deliver.
hey, how much would it cost me if you could bring this up to me? I got a guy who'll drive there for $150.
So just ask the question. It might be easy. You might be able to expand your opportunities going outside of your marketplace.